The bright side of addiction is recovery. And recovery is an American way of life. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Scott. If you are new to our podcast, we welcome you. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're in recovery, know or love someone who is, or you simply want to know more about the recovery process, or maybe you're a bit concerned about someone you know or love who harmfully uses alcohol or any other drug, this is the podcast for you. We carry the message of hope and the promise of recovery. And a reminder, you can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. Recent episodes have featured interviews with award-winning actress Mackenzie Phillips, former astronaut Buzz Aldrin, former NFL quarterback Ryan Leaf, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Dion from Dion and the Belmonts, Bonnie Raitt, and many other prominent people in long-term recovery. Plus, conversations with everyday people in long-term recovery, sharing their story, their insight, and their path. Now, in today's program, we're going to take you to Amelia Island, Florida, for the NAATP National Leadership Conference, and a visit with Jeff J. He and his wife, Deborah, were recipients of the 2026 Michael Q. Ford Journalism Award. Here's a quick clip from today's program with Jeff J.
It's a gift. It's a part of my daily life. It's what keeps me in touch with God, with my fellows. I have the incredible privilege of sponsoring people and helping them, and I hope, and carrying the message to the best of my ability. And it's a very deep well. It's an infinitely deep well of love, of wisdom, of the opportunity for service, and the opportunity to keep myself right-sized and not be something other than another guy at the table.
And later on in the podcast, on The Last Word, we'll feature award-winning actress Jamie Lee Curtis reflecting on her sobriety. Our website is recoverycoasttocoast.org. And if you'd like to help us out financially, you can once again go to our website, recoverycoasttocoast.org, and click on the tab Donate. We recently put it back online. It's pretty simple to operate, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you would check it out. Recovery Coast to Coast, supported by Sundown M Ranch, one of America's oldest, least expensive, and most successful treatment programs. They are listed in Newsweek magazine's recent list of America's top treatment providers. Now, someone recently asked me if a 30-day treatment program, such as the one at Sundown, will cure their addiction. That would be no. First of all, the bad news is there's no cure for addictive disease. It's chronic, progressive, and potentially fatal. But the good news, the disease can be successfully arrested. And there is hope for long-term recovery. In fact, tens of millions, listen again, tens of millions of people in the U.S. are in long-term recovery, leading a happy, healthy, and free life. It's a wonderful journey back to self, and it often begins with inpatient treatment at a reputable addiction treatment center like Sundown M Ranch. They've been successfully treating people with drug and alcohol disorders for the past 57 years. Over 200,000 individuals, adolescents, and family members have gone through Sundown and have gotten their life back, including their loved ones and their job. They got that back, and everything has been better than ever. And if you're looking for a treatment program that is all-inclusive, please consider Sundown M Ranch in your search. If someone you know or love has a problem with alcohol or any other drug, consider one of the best treatment programs around, and that is Sundown M Ranch. To find out more about Sundown, visit their website where you can take a look at their treatment philosophy and see photos of their facility. They're at the mouth of the Yakima River Canyon, not far from Seattle. Sundown.org, it's where recovery begins. That's the sound of coffee being poured. Conversation and coffee. Today we head down to Amelia Island, Florida, where NAATP, the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers, was holding their 47th annual leadership conference. Now, one of the highlights of the annual conference is the awards banquet, where they bestow awards on a number of well-deserving individuals. One of the awards is the Michael Q. Ford Journalism Award. Mike Ford was the first director of NAATP 47 years ago, and he was a good friend of mine, which means I'm OLD. But I digress. This year, the award went to Jeff and Deborah J., whose journalistic work has included the best-selling book, Love First. Now, I caught up with Jeff, and we talked about his path to freedom, as well as the impact his work has had on others. Here now is my conversation with Jeff J. Welcome back to Recovery Coast to Coast. I'm Neil Scott. We are here at Amelia Island, Florida, where the NAATP Leadership Conference has been going on. If you're not familiar with NAATP, Google it. If you're considering a treatment program, be damn sure that they are members of NAATP. It's always great to come here because I get to meet a lot of old friends. There's a lot of legends that pass through. And the couple who won the Michael Q. Ford Award for this year, Jeff J. and his wife Deborah, gave a great presentation. In fact, what I'm going to do at the end of this podcast, in the podcast notes, I am going to add a link to the audio from that evening because it was absolutely terrific. And Jeff is joining us, and I've been a big fan of his, forever and ever. He's been in the field for, 40 years?
Yes, it'll be officially 40 years in October.
Yeah, that between the two of us, that's 90. Oh, man, which makes me OLD.
Which means that we were the young guys once upon a time.
Once upon a time, and now you look out, and it's so exciting, Jeff, to see these young people coming into the field with energy, exuberance, excitement. We're passing it on to a good future.
It's so true. There are so many people with great energy and just that integrity and passion, and it's wonderful to see.
Where are you living now?
We live in Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, right outside Detroit.
For those of you unfamiliar with Jeff, he wrote A Family's Guide to Intervention, Love First. I always say recovery first, but recovery comes from love.
Well, it really does. And what the intervention field was missing way back when we wrote the book was putting love first and using the love and concern of the family members and friends in a very specific and organized way so that we could break through the normal resistance and denial that anyone has and bring them to a moment of clarity where they will accept the help that's being offered.
When I first came into the field, the intervention was it Vern Johnson?
Vern Johnson, yeah, and he's the father of modern intervention, but he never actually evolved a method that, a kind of a step-by-step of how you do it.
It was an idea, it was a concept, and people started doing it.
And he was wonderful, but and in fact, Hazelden had, once they acquired the Johnson Institute catalog, they wanted Deborah and I to kind of update it, and we said, there actually isn't a method here, and so we that's where Love First came from.
Let's go back, Jeff, to maybe the 3rd of October, 1981. What was happening in Jeff's life?
Well, I was at the end, and I had decided that the very best idea was to commit suicide, and my addiction had completely destroyed my life. And without getting into that whole long story, I was at the end, and I had been a National Merit Scholar and looked good on the outside in many ways, but by the time I got to the end, I had a bleeding ulcer, a bleeding colon, transient neuropathy of the legs. I was all of 26, and I just couldn't go on anymore. And there were a series of miracles that took place. I was living in a flop house in California, and a friend of my brother's, this is 1981, this is a long time ago, no cell phones or anything. A friend of my brother's saw me on the street, And he didn't speak to me, but he saw the door that I went into, or the flop house, and he called back to Michigan and said, this is where he went, and he's going to die. He is like a skeleton. Make a long story short, there was a long-distance intervention by payphone.
I remember those.
Okay. But yeah, it's quite a story. Somehow, my parents had gotten some advice on intervention by someone, and so they were at least very calm and very kind. And believe me, we didn't have a lot of calm conversations in that era of my life. At some point, my dad asked me, Jeff, how are you doing? And I was struck dumb. I didn't know what to say because I'm thinking, well, I'm bleeding from both ends. I can hardly walk, and I'm going to commit suicide in about 10 minutes. You know, I didn't say that. But I'm also thinking, but it's a beautiful day. The birds are singing. The sun is shining. And I don't know where it came from. It just came out of I said the single most intelligent thing I ever said in my life. I said, I think I need to go into a hospital. And the next thing I knew, there was a plane ticket, and there was, anyway, the next day, October 4th, I checked into the first detox bed available in Michigan, which was Hurley Hospital up in Flint. It all went from there.
What was the first year like for you?
Well, I was fortunate. The next day, after in detox, a wonderful doctor, Dr. William Keating, he came into my room. He was a great, big, powerful black man. He'd been doing alcohol and drug treatment forever. It was like God walking into the room. And I'm sitting on the side of the bed, and I'm shaking and sweating. And he came in, he goes, boy, he got right up in my face. And boy, he said, you got a disease. He said, you're not responsible for what you've done. Wow. And I'm like, great. He said, but you're responsible for what you do now. Shit. He said, this was so beautiful, Neil. What he said to me, he said, your disease is incurable. The most we're going to be able to do is put it in remission. We're going to give you a program to follow, 12 steps. You follow that program, and the disease will stay in remission. You stop following that program, and the disease is going to kick you in the ass again. And he stood up and he walked out. I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know anything about AA, 12 steps, disease. I knew nothing. But it ended up being, I can remember that this was, over 44 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the most perfect little compact nugget of information. So I was 10 days in detox in an acute care hospital. That's how sick I was. And then they transferred me to a 28-day program, about an hour away. So I got good treatment, but at that time in my life, I was an atheist. And toward the end of my treatment, I realized I was going to drink again and I was going to die. And for once, I didn't want to. And I was desperate to find a solution, and I paced around and walked around, and all I could think was, I'm going to drink again and I'm going to die. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And finally, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I got down on my knees and I cried out to the God I didn't believe in. Had a profound spiritual awakening, a white light. I was in the presence of God, and it was just, everything changed from that moment forward.
That was the moment of clarity.
That was. And I knew I was in the presence of God. I was in the presence of a love so profound that the whole universe comes out of it. The first day I got out of treatment, I went to an AA meeting.
You had been to meetings in the treatment center.
I had been introduced to it, thank God. And I did not wait till the second day. The first day I got out, that night I was at a meeting. I don't remember a single thing that was said there, but they were very kind. They were very warm, and they asked me what I was doing tomorrow night. And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, we're going to this meeting. I'm like, okay, well, I'll go there. And I'm still going.
How long did it take for you to work the program rather than just go to meetings?
Well, I'm not sure what to say about that. It's unusual in the area in the Detroit area, we do something different than we do in other parts of the world, frankly. We don't have a big room with everybody sitting and somebody gives a lead. And we all, even if there's 100 people at the meeting, we sit around tables of about 8 or 10. And so they'll still read how it works, and they'll do this and that. But then we have a little pamphlet from Akron called An Introduction to the 12 Steps. And people say, well, what step do you want to talk about tonight? And somebody will say step 2. And so we read the little thing on step 2, and then we all talk about it. When I traveled to other areas and they said, well, when did you, I didn't start doing the steps for about 6 months. I'm like, how could you escape the steps? We do something every night. There
That
was
is different. That
it
is
was
different.
different. And it was wonderful. So there was no kind of escaping it. Now, that doesn't take the place of working the steps with a sponsor and stuff like that, but it was so expected and so baked into the fabric of Alcoholics Anonymous, where I got sober, that I would say this, I probably completed the steps certainly within 6 months or something like that. And yet, in saying that, even 6 months, I really completed almost everything in just a few months. I'm a big believer in getting through the steps, because then it should be linear to begin with, but then it's like spokes of a wheel.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it just keeps
Sure.
going and going and going. And especially where I got sober, that's what we did. We're always talking about the steps. Anyway, it was very different. So I could go on and on, but
That's amazing. How was the first year for you?
it was actually wonderful. I mean, yeah, it was difficult, and I had to, go back to work and try to do this. I mean, a lot of things fell apart for me.
What were you doing then, work-wise?
I was working in our family business, which was title and abstract, like title insurance for real estate and stuff like that. So I was a title examiner. It was like the single most boring job you could ever have in your life. It was stultifyingly boring. I did that for about 5 years until I got sick of that and went to work as a therapist at Sacred Heart Rehabilitation Center. But anyway, the first year I kind of lost the girlfriend that I wanted. I lost this, lost that, but all the way I was really gaining so much. And just after I had a year sober, my father passed away at 58 years of age. I don't know how I could have gotten through that except through AA. Everybody was at the funeral home. Everybody was at the funeral. Everybody was holding me up every step of the way. It was the great we. It was that recovering community there that got me through it. And a few years after that, my little brother committed suicide.
Oh,
he actually did it. And once again, everybody was there for all my AA friends held me up and carried me through those difficult days. And a couple of years after that, I had a brief marriage early on, and my, didn't last long. Wonderful woman.
Starter marriage?
I guess you could say that. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't my fault. It was just, that's what happened. And once again, everybody held me up. No matter what I was going through, I always felt so fortunate to have this group of AA friends. They were my rock. I mean, God does work through people. I'm a big believer in prayer and meditation. I spend an hour or more every morning, and then again in the evening before I go to bed. But God works through people most of the time.
Yeah.
I know of no better place to find that miracle working power than in Alcoholics Anonymous.
When did you meet Deborah?
After my divorce, I sold everything I owned, bought a boat, and decided to go to the Caribbean. I never made it. I made it as far as Florida. I ran out of money. I was broke. My boat was broken, and I had to get a job again. By this time, I had been working as a counselor for a number of years. So I went to the local AA meeting, and I met a guy who was working for Hazelden at a program called Hanley Hazelden in West Palm Beach. And he said, they're looking for a counselor. Do you have any, credentials or anything? I'm like, yeah, I'm a certified addiction counselor, which in Florida was a CAP. So I got it transferred. They hired me right away, and I went to work there. And there was another really cute counselor there by the name of Deborah. Anyway, after a while, we started going out, and a year later, we were married.
And not only are you married, but she is a collaborator with you.
Yes, and in fact, she's really the primary writer of our stuff, and has written a number of books in her own right, having nothing to do with me. But even our main book, Love First, even though it says by Jeff J. and Deborah J., we had an editor friend, newspaper editor, and he said to us, before you ever write the first word of this book you're about to write, decide if you want your marriage to survive the writing of the book. He said, decide right now who is going to be the final writer. He said, you can each write as much as you want, but who is going to be the final writer? And it was Deborah. And that meant that everything was in the same voice, right?
Yeah,
it's not varying back and forth. And and there would be no arguing about what the final form would be, because that'll kill a marriage.
Yeah, of course.
So it was wonderful advice, and Deborah does not get enough credit for that.
You wrote a book on grief?
I wrote a book called Navigating Grace.
Or Navigating Grace.
Navigating Grace, but it tells the story, that ill-fated sailing trip that I went on, solo sailing trip. I almost killed myself in the middle of the ocean. It's a long story, but the story of that trip gave me a scaffold to talk about my addiction, my recovery, the loss of my father, my brother, the marriage, all kinds of things. And it really gives the whole arc, not just of my recovery, but of my life with God, and my spiritual life and everything else. So it's a book that's very near and dear to my heart. It's a little hard to find copies of it now. Navigating Grace is about, among other things, about living through that grief and also learning to forgive myself for some things. And if most of us do struggle with forgiving ourselves. Yeah.
Did you do some work with Terry McGovern?
Oh, yes. Not with Terry herself, but
with her dad?
George McGovern. After she had died, we were doing an initial intervention program with Hazelland called Take Charge. And his daughter, Terry, died while we were in the early stages of this project. And so I called him to see if he would be involved.
Wonderful man.
And he was, I like call his office in Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, my name's Jeff J. I'm doing this program with Betty Ford and Hazelden, and, they were not together at that time. And I'd like to speak to Senator McGovern. And the secretary says, just a moment. I'm ready to fall over. And then I hear this very recognizable voice. Hello, this is George McGovern. And this will tell you everything you need to know about George McGovern. I gave him my pitch of what we were trying to do in intervention and yada. And I said, I'd like to come and meet with you and talk about this. And he said, well, what time would be convenient for you? I said, no. You tell me when you are available, and I will be there. But that's how gracious just an amazing person.
I had met him at an airport. He was flying out of Seattle, and I was too. And it turns out that the flight was delayed by about 4 hours, and we spent 4 hours talking about his daughter, talking about the book. Gracious is indeed a good way to describe George McGovern. Just a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Yeah.
So they had a foundation you folks were involved with.
Yes, I was actually the president of the foundation. It did not last more than 4 or 5 years, and we gave all the money away. We had these awards, and we just gave it all away.
Yeah.
And that was very nice. We actually were able to give an award to William White when he had just come when he had just come out with Slaying the Dragon. And so we flew him to Washington, and there was a big awards dinner, and it was.
In fact, listeners, if you're not familiar with Slaying the Dragon, you should be. Find it. It's just an amazing book, and Bill is the Bill W. of our generation.
Well, he's an amazing historian, not just of AA, but of the whole evolution of treatment.
Yes.
And that's what Slaying the Dragon is really about. And a great guy. I haven't talked to him in quite a while, but wonderful person.
Yeah, he's still with us. Are there any more books in your future or in Deborah's future?
Right now, we are working on a big project. It's Deborah's project, and I want to make that clear. It's her project, and I am helping her with it. We'll be talking about that in the early fall. But it's going to be a game changer for families and for treatment providers too, because family is a key element in recovery, and we often don't put enough emphasis on it.
I agree, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a family disease, and the family needs to get well.
Exactly.
And it's out of balance if that doesn't happen.
Exactly right. I want her to come and do a podcast with you sometime and talk about structured family recovery, because what she built around that is amazing, and you'll be fascinated by it.
We could certainly do something by Zoom with her in the future. I'd love
Absolutely.
to do that. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Family is so important, and again, programs that do not have a comprehensive family program, I'm not even sure why they exist.
Well, and I know you know this. Family programs are not covered by insurance.
I know.
And so they have gradually dwindled to the point that even programs that have family programs, they're nothing like what they used to be.
Yeah. Jeff, what is recovery like for you today?
Oh, it's a gift. It's a part of my daily life. It's what keeps me in touch with God, with my fellows. I have the incredible privilege of sponsoring people and helping them, and I hope, and carrying the message to the best of my ability. And it's a very deep well. It's an infinitely deep well of love, of wisdom, of the opportunity for service, and the opportunity to keep myself right-sized and not be something other than another guy at the table.
Tell me about Border Cottage.
So Board and Cottage is a program that I was privileged to be the CEO of for a brief period of time up in Maine. It's a very exclusive program for people who need a super high level of privacy because of who they are in the world. And there are such people that they really just cannot go to a normal treatment center because they'd be torn apart by the other residents and the staff, frankly. So the owner decided to exit, and so I did at the same time. Now they found new owners, but I did not stay on. But a marvelous program in a beautiful, beautiful setting, and they have a good melding of high-level clinical and medical acumen with the spirituality of the 12 steps.
What is Jeff J. doing today?
Well, geez, I'm still working with families in crisis, doing interventions. I write articles that are published on our website. I'm helping Deborah with her project. My whole world is really about the spirituality of recovery and trying to help people open their hearts to God as they do or don't understand Him.
And that's coming from a card-carrying atheist at one time.
Correct.
Wow.
And I know what that's like. I know what it's like to be so locked up in the intellect that there's no room for God. The unfortunate part of that is that it forces one to be one's own higher power.
Yeah, exactly. A dear friend of mine, Kathy Ketchum, wrote a book called Spirituality of Imperfection.
Love Kathy. She's a marvelous person.
And a great writer.
Yes, she is.
And a great writer.
Yes.
I'll tell you said hello.
Oh, yes. And as you know, gosh, it's a few years ago now, but she brought out a new edition of her classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she worked with Dr. Jim Milam. And
right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we have a long history in this field, and I congratulate you on the Michael Q. Ford Award. Claudia Black won it last year.
Yeah.
I was privileged to win it the year before, and it really, celebrates the fact that we need to continue to not only carry the message, but to send the message that treatment works, recovery is possible, and recovery begins with hope.
Yes. Absolutely. It's all about the hope. It's all about the love. And I'm very fortunate that my family didn't give up on me because I was an obnoxious, recalcitrant, I was a handful, and they never gave up. And at the last moment, at the 11th hour and 59th moment, I accepted.
Yeah. I remember Marty Mann telling me when I first came into the field, don't ever stop believing in the alcoholic.
So true.
Amen.
Every soul,
right.
As long as there's life, there's hope.
Yep, there is. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff, and continued success to you. Give my love to Deborah and tell her that we'll be in touch and we can do something by Zoom, and we'll talk more about families because that is the essence of long-term recovery.
So true. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
I hope you've enjoyed the conversation I had with Jeff. And as a special treat, I'm going to also share the annual NAATP Awards presentation, and I'm going to put that in the podcast notes. And by the way, I want to remind listeners of this podcast, if you would like to tell your story of recovery, regardless of the path that you've chosen, and as long as you have been in continuous recovery for a year or more, drop us a note, recovery coast to coast, at Comcast.net. We can do a phone interview or a Zoom interview. Coming up next, today's last word with iconic actress Jamie Lee Curtis. We'll hear the last word from Jamie Lee Curtis in just 30 seconds.
Are you afraid? Afraid of life without drugs and alcohol? There is help and hope at Sundown M Ranch. At Sundown, the focus is on you and your disease. You will learn how to live without depending on drugs and alcohol. Sundown M Ranch is nationally recognized for effective and affordable alcohol and drug treatment programs. Reclaim your life. Replace your fears with hope. Go to www.sundown.org right now to learn more.
And now, as promised, the amazing Jamie Lee Curtis, who's been in long-term recovery for many, many years.
Nobody gets sober to walk with the stone of oppression on them all day. The whole idea is to drop it and say, that was the past, this is now. I have made a decision to walk free from it and walk through all of the pain and shame and terrible suffering to get to something better. And so to me, sobriety is the great wash of freedom.
It is award-winning actress and staunch recovery advocate Jamie Lee Curtis who gets today's last word. And a reminder, if you would like to listen to the NAATP Annual Awards Dinner, which features today's guest, Jeff J., we're going to place a link in the podcast notes. Well, that wraps up this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please share it with others via social media or simply by telling someone about it. You can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, our email is recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Also, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's free, and you'll be notified the next time we publish a podcast. And if you'd like to help us out financially, that would be lovingly appreciated. Please click on the Donate tab on our website, recoverycoasttocoast.org. And if you're considering treatment for a friend or a loved one, be sure and visit the NAATP.org/AID. That's the Addiction Information Directory, a listing of those treatment programs that adhere to the strict ethical guidelines. One of them, of course, is Sundown M Ranch, but there are a number of other great treatment programs around the country as well. And join us next time for America's Voice for Recovery, Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. And another shout out to our sponsoring organization, Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins. Sundown.org. I'm Neil Scott, reminding you to stay healthy, live in gratitude, and be kind to others. Remember, the bright side of addiction is recovery. Pass it on.